Several years ago, I was working as a biologist at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, at a wildlife school, and my sister called me, who lived pretty close to that area, and she called me at work one day, and she said, "Mark, I have a woodpecker in my backyard. It's as big as a chicken." And obviously, I knew right away what it was, because not many woodpeckers are quite that big. And that's a pretty good description of the size of the bird of today's topic, the pileated woodpecker. It generates tons of questions by folks, and then people get really excited for them. They're one of the birds that I classify as a hook bird that gets people interested in bird watching quite often when they see their first pileated woodpecker. It really stimulates an interest there because they are so big, impressive birds. So thought we'd learn a little bit about those today, and hopefully, give you some ideas that how you might be able to attract them, although they're not the easiest bird to bring into your feeders. So first off, how do you pronounce the name? Pileated or pileated? The first questions that we get. I was told once by a fellow bird watcher that his wife was a linguist, that technically, because of whatever the rules are, that it should be pileated. I've been bird watching for 35 years, and I've met very few bird watchers who actually call it pileated woodpecker. You can call it that. Most people I know call it pileated, and my justification for calling it pileated is because the bird is named for that crest, and the scientific name for that crest on those birds is a pileum, and so I think pileated is what the intended pronunciation of it was. But either one, you're fine, pileated or pileated. And where do you find them? Why are these birds? Are they really rare? People think we don't see them very often, so they must be rare. Well, they're not actually very rare. They're more secretive than they are rare. That's two different things. They're not super common like the little downy woodpecker, but they're not endangered by any stretch of the imagination, or their populations aren't in bad trouble or anything. The pileateds are birds of big forest, big older trees, which of course are diminishing. But in our area, if you want to look for pileated woodpeckers, you need to be in or around and near older stands of woods. Weston Bend State Park is one of the best places I know to find them. I hear them almost every time I'm there. The Kansas City Zoo, great place to find them. I've been down at the zoo and seen them flying across and hear them cackling in the woods. So Swope Park, which is obviously very old timber in the Kansas City area. So Burr Oak Woods Nature Center, I worked when I first moved to Missouri. We used to see them there on occasion up near the bird feeders. So areas that have big timber. But you're lucky because in the fall and the winter, when the leaves are off the trees and they're easier to see, they tend to be less attached to those big heavy timber area like they are for nesting, and they tend to finger out into lesser habitat. This picture was taken in my backyard out at Thousand Oaks, and it was in the December actually when this picture was taken. So after nesting season's over, they tend to finger out into lesser, smaller tracts of wood. So that's whenever we see them. I see them in the area around my house. So this is a great time, and they're also easier to see when there's no leaves on the trees. So one of the best things you can do is learn their cackle call, and use that to key in on looking for them. And they're also one of the very few woodpeckers that have a distinctive drumming sound. Most woodpeckers have that drum of brrr, just a real rapid beat, and you think because it's loud it must be a pileated. Nope, a downy woodpecker can sound just as loud as a pileated if it's a good hollow piece of wood or a loose piece of wood that rattles really well. But what's distinctive about the pileated's call is it tends to taper off at the end. It slows down on the drum, whereas most other woodpeckers don't. They have that consistent rattle and stop, whereas pileateds are toward at the end, so they slow down at the end. So that's one you can pick up on if you learn to, and when you're listening for them, you can hear that. Can you tell male from female? Another good question. This one is actually a female. You can tell them apart, and it is by the malar stripe. We call it the mustache stripe. It would be red here from the bill out. This one is still black. It's back through there. So this is a female that was in the backyard. You can't. The crest is the same on male and female, but they are large birds. We say crow sized, and they're impressive. Can you attract them to your yard? Good question. Okay. One of my favorite stories is from John Burr Ruehle, who worked for us a really long time, was up in Minnesota visiting a relative one time, and this little peanut feeder, we've carried it for years. His cousin had one hanging in his yard up in Minnesota, and he had a big old pileated woodpecker hanging on it and eating on it, bigger than the bird feeder itself, and he was eating on the peanuts. And so they can be attracted to them. They also are attracted to suet. They can be attracted. So suet feeders, and we carry this, which is a big suet feeder with a tail prop, because with pileated being as long as they are, they need a big surface area. And this design, we call them tail prop suet feeders, because woodpeckers use their tail as a kickstand. So they have 3 points of articulation, 2 feet, and their tail, so it gives them better leverage for hammering on a suet cake. So this is something that you could use in an area that you have pileated woodpeckers, that especially in the winter months, and you can get them, could come to your suet feeders. That's something that can help there. So peanuts and suet are primarily what you're going to have luck with if you can get them into your backyard. If you live in really open areas with not many trees, I'm sorry, your chances are a whole lot less. But keep an eye out for this big black and white bird come soaring over the road when you're driving. If you think it might be one, give it a quick glance and see. And it probably is, because they are more common in our area than we really think. So, well, that was a requested program from the internet. So if you like the videos, please share them, like them, send in ideas for future programs. And until then, come by, let's talk birds.